and food safety, as well as she oversees the processing and repackaging of foods in our Fresh Approaches room. So welcome to everybody.
Thanks, Julie. Yeah, like Julie said, my name's Chelsea, and I'm a registered dietitian from the Food Bank of Waterloo region. And today I'm here to guide you through a webinar to help you support the nutrition and wellness of your clients. So hopefully this webinar will provide you with some simple tips for healthy eating that you can share with clients when running nutrition-related program or just when answering some common nutrition questions. So I'll also cover some different resources kind of at the end and throughout that you can provide clients for further support or information. So what will we learn about today? So today we're going to cover the importance of supporting nutrition and wellness in our clients. We'll talk about Canada's food guides, so more specifically kind of creating balanced meals and snacks, and also reading nutrition labels. And then I'll also cover some of those additional resources that I talked about. So why is it important to support the nutrition and wellness of clients? Well, we know that food insecurity and health outcomes are closely linked. So according to Proof Research Institute, research has actually shown that adults living in food insecure households are more vulnerable to infectious disease, poor oral health, injury, and developing chronic conditions. So this includes conditions such as depression and anxiety disorders, heart disease, hypertension, and diabetes. We also know that food insecurity can make it difficult for individuals to manage these existing health problems and can actually lead to worsening conditions due to the increased costs for therapeutic diets and medications. However, the good part is that nutrition can play a key role in preventing and managing some chronic conditions such as heart disease and diabetes. So this is a really great graphic from Feeding America, and it just really shows the link between food insecurity and chronic disease and how it can become a cycle that's very difficult to break. So at the root of this cycle is income. So first we see that there's not enough money to purchase food, which results in decreased dietary quality and chronic disease. Chronic disease can increase healthcare costs and may decrease an individual's ability to do certain jobs. So these two factors are kind of further contributing to decreased income, as we see in the last step. And I like to point this out because when it comes to breaking this cycle, income is a big piece of that, as many of us know. However, in the short term, we can still support individuals' nutrition and wellness, especially as many baby experiencing chronic disease. So, like I said, we can continue supporting clients in making the best use of the resources to eat a nutritious diet. When doing this, it's important to take a realistic approach to nutrition and remember that a nutritious diet can look different for everyone. So, there's a couple things that we can do. So, first, just acknowledging that providing healthy foods can be very difficult for individuals experiencing food insecurity. And just in general, we know with inflation right now, the cost of food is just getting higher and it's more difficult to consume a healthy diet. We can also validate positive actions that clients are already taking. So we know that even small changes can be very beneficial to our health. Also, encouraging realistic small changes. So we don't want to be suggesting changes to clients that might not be possible financially. So, for example, something like recommending that they always eat salmon once a week when that may not be something that's possible financially. And then building off of this point, so when it comes to making changes, we always want to focus on adding rather than removing food. So we don't want to tell someone they should never eat white pasta when that might be all that they have access to. Instead, we could try suggesting ways to incorporate other whole grains that may be a more realistic approach. And finally, we can look for ways to reduce barriers when providing resources or referring to supports. So, thinking about things like maybe language barriers or distance to programs that we're suggesting. So, one of the best tools for supporting clients' nutrition is Canada's Food Guide. So, a couple years ago, Canada's Food Guide was updated from the version that we see on the screen, which had 4 food groups and was very heavily focused around servings and serving sizes, to the image that we now see on the right. So the new Canada's Food Guide uses a plate-based model, and this is a really simple tool to help you plan meals throughout the day. So with this tool, your plate is broken up into 3 categories: fruits and vegetables, whole grains, and protein. So the goal is that when you're making meals throughout the day, you want to divide your plate up the same way that the model does. So this means that half of your plate should be fruits and vegetables, a quarter whole grains, and the remaining quarter protein. So one thing that I always like to point out is that when creating a balanced plate, it's important to remember that everyone's plate is going to look different. So things like taste, culture, budget, and lifestyle will all play a role into what your plate looks like. A healthy plate can look many different ways, and the most important thing is to create a plate that fits you. And it's also okay if your plate doesn't look like this at every meal. I know my meals don't always look perfect just like this. So Canada's Food Guide is really just meant to be a guide. It's not a set of strict rules. So when we're sharing Canada's Food Guide with clients, we can encourage them just to start small and gradually make changes or additions as they work towards creating their version of a healthy plate. So, for example, they may try setting a goal to make half of their plate fruits and vegetables, even just once a day, and then just building from there. So, now let's talk a little bit more about what fits into each of these categories. So first up is fruits and vegetables, which should be about half of your plate at meals. So when it comes to fruits and vegetables, there's lots of different things that fit into this category. So whether they're fresh, frozen, or canned, all of those fruits and vegetables would fit. So we can see lots of different examples on the screen there of different foods that would fit into this category. So encourage clients to get creative when adding fruits and vegetables to their plate. We want to try and eat as many different types and colors of fruits and vegetables as we have access to, because this just ensures that we're getting a wide range of nutrients. So canned fruits and vegetables often have a bad reputation for being high in sugar and salt, and often people think they aren't as nutritious as fresh. This is actually a really common myth. They're actually just as nutritious as fresh. So to reduce some of the added salt in canned vegetables, we can actually just rinse them and it will remove about 25 to 40% of the sodium, or we can look for reduced salt options. When it comes to canned fruit, we can just drain off the juice or look for options packed in water or fruit juice. So next up is whole grains. So they should be making up about a quarter of your plate. So when selecting grain products, we want to try and choose whole grains as often as they're available. So whole grains are less refined, and this means that they're higher in nutrients such as iron, B vitamins, and fiber. So we want to look for words such as 100% whole grain on the packaging or whole grain at the start of the ingredients list to try and help maximize our intake of these nutrients. So there's lots of different examples that I've listed there on the screen. And so while Canada's Food Guide does emphasize whole grains because they're high in fiber and B vitamins, really any grain product would fit into this category. So even something like a white pasta or bread. And I really like to highlight this because nutrition isn't all or nothing. So even if you can't choose whole grains all of the time, even incorporating them when possible will still have that positive impact on your health. So our final category is protein. So this should be about a quarter of your plate. So when it comes to protein, there are a wide range of options such as plant and animal sources. So plant-based sources of proteins include things like nuts, seeds, and beans or legumes, while animal-based sources of protein include things like meat, seafood, eggs, and dairy. So incorporating a range of protein sources when possible is important as plant-based sources of protein are a great source of fiber while being low in saturated fat, while animal-based sources of protein are high in vitamin B12. And there's lots of really great budget-friendly options in this category as well. So thinking about things like canned tuna, dry or canned beans, powdered milk, eggs, tofu, and many other options. And just like canned vegetables, canned beans can sometimes be a little bit higher in salt. So we can kind of take that same approach that we took with the canned vegetables. So looking for no salt or reduced sodium options, or just simply rinsing the beans before using them to reduce that sodium content. So I thought it might be helpful to include some activities that you can share with clients, whether you're running a cooking class or a small group session. So this is a really great activity that I like to include a lot. So what I do is I just print off a blank plate and we'll kind of divide it into the three categories that we were seeing with Canada's Food Guide. And then I give clients the option to build their own version of a healthy plate. So they can select if they want to make breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And then in all the different categories, they can either write the foods in that they're going to put into that section of the plate. If you have kids, you can have them draw pictures. Or sometimes I'll just print out individual food cards. So just kind of one food item on a card, and then it's just an easy way to mix and match and make different meals. And when doing this activity, you can have them share at the end, and then just encouraging the group that a balanced plate can look many different ways, and there really isn't a right or wrong way to do things. So this same plate model can be applied when creating hampers or even when shopping. So trying to make our hamper or our grocery cart about half fruits and vegetables, a quarter grains or whole grain products, and a quarter protein. So it's really applicable to different areas. So snacks are also important because they help to prevent us from getting too hungry between meals and help to ensure that our body has enough energy to function throughout the day. So when creating snacks, we want to pair at least one fruit, vegetable, or whole grain with a source of protein. This is because the more variety that you include in your snack, the more nutrients that you will consume. So these food groups also help to ensure that you have the two key components of a balanced snack, carbohydrates and protein. So fruits, vegetables, and whole grains contain carbohydrates, which give us energy, and then protein helps us feel full and maintain our energy. So an example that you might create with this formula would be something like an apple and peanut butter that you see on the screen. So the apple contains carbohydrates, which gives us energy, and the peanut butter contains protein, which helps us feel full and maintain energy. So this means that by combining the two, we get a long-lasting energy and a snack that helps to keep us feeling full. So another activity that you can do with this is just to have clients create 5 different snack pairings. So you can use those food cards or just have them simply write out just a couple pairings. And that's a really great activity for them to kind of apply what they're learning. So Canada's Food Guide highlights a lot more than just what we put on our plate because we know that our health is more than just food. So there's lots of positive changes that we can make, even when it's not possible to drastically change what's on our plate. So, for example, we can try to incorporate mindful eating habits. So, thinking about things like how you eat, why you eat, what you eat, when you eat, where you eat, and how much you eat can help us become more conscious of our eating habits so we can make positive changes to our eating behaviors. So, for example, if we were maybe always eating in front of a device and noticing that we were feeling really uncomfortably full after doing that, maybe we try eating with others or trying to avoid eating in front of a device. So, we're able to check in with our bodies a little bit more in terms of how we're feeling in terms of fullness. We can also try cooking more often. So, cooking and preparing foods can support healthy eating habits. So, cooking allows us to learn new skills, rely less on heavily processed foods, control the amount of salt and sugar in our foods, save money by avoiding extra money spent on eating out, and choosing healthy ingredients. Also, enjoy your food. So, make food choices that reflect your taste. So, choosing foods that we like. Um, Also, making choices that reflect our culture. So, culture and food traditions can be a great way to add enjoyment to your food. Also, selecting foods that fit your budget. So, there's many different ways to enjoy food, even when you're eating on a budget. And lifestyle. So, there's no right or wrong way to enjoy your food. So, you can always enjoy your food no matter what lifestyle. So, whether you're busy, you live a very busy lifestyle, or you have kids, there's always still a way to enjoy your food. And enjoy meals with others. So, by eating with others, you can enjoy quality time together, share new food traditions across generations and cultures, and explore new healthy food items that you may not normally try. So, maybe you try introducing a new food Friday once a month, and as a family or with friends, trying one new food item. So, Canada's Food Guide also highlights a couple other things to be aware of, like how marketing can influence your food choices, limiting highly processed foods, and using food labels, which we're going to talk about next. So, nutrition facts tables can be a great tool to help clients in selecting foods that align with their health goals. However, many people don't feel confident reading them. But there are really just 3 key things that we need to remember when looking at nutrition facts tables to make reading them quick and easy. So when it comes to reading nutrition facts tables, the first thing that we want to find is the serving size. So this value tells you how much food the nutrition facts table is based on. So on this nutrition facts table on the screen, we see that the serving size is 1 cup. So this means that the rest of the table will contain information on the nutrients found in that amount. And so this serving size is not a recommendation of how much food you should be consuming. So the listed serving size is actually based on how much of a food item people typically consume to make it easy to compare products when you're in the grocery store. It's also important to look at the serving size because often it may not be a full can or package, so you may need to multiply or divide the serving size to match how much you're consuming. Second, look at calories. So, calories are the amount of energy that's released by our body when they break down a food item. So, the number of calories you need really depends on a lot of different factors. So, things like age, gender, and physical activity. So, most importantly, we want to make sure that we're consuming enough calories, or else our bodies won't have enough energy to properly function. So, nutrition facts tables will tell us how much energy a food item will provide us based on the serving size. So, when we look at this nutrition facts table, we see that it will provide us with 110 calories in a 1 cup serving. So, the last thing that we want to look for is the percent daily value that we see on the right hand side. So, this is a really simple tool, pretty much just to tell you if there is a little or a lot of a nutrient in a food. So 5% or less daily value means that there's a little bit of a nutrient. Meanwhile, 15% daily value or more means that there's a lot of a nutrient. So when looking at percent daily values, we want to be trying to get more vitamin A, calcium, iron, and fiber. And then on the other hand, we want to try to get less fat, saturated fat, trans fat, sugar, and sodium. So, for example, when we look at this food item, we see that it's pretty high in sugar. So, it's 22%. So, it's definitely over the 15%. So, this might be an item that we want to consume in moderation or try to limit. And so, really, this tool is just to help you select foods that align with your personal nutrition goals. So, for example, if we are looking to reduce our fat intake, we may be trying to look for food items that are closer to that 5% or less daily value. So this is a really great activity that you can have clients or participants work on. So this really just comparing two different nutrition facts tables. So I try to pick similar products. So I might do a plain yogurt and a flavored yogurt, and then have them just talk about the positives and negatives of each food label. So what are the foods high in, what are they lower in, and which would be the better choice for them personally. And so, when doing this activity, I like to encourage participants that the goal isn't to find a perfect product, but instead to use the nutrition facts tables as a tool to help you in reaching your unique nutrition goals. So, maybe you're wanting to increase your iron intake or decrease your sodium intake. And so, speaking of nutrition goals, clients with dietary restrictions or following specialized diets due to certain health conditions is becoming a lot more common. So I'm going to cover three common health conditions that usually require a special diet, what they are, what foods are typically recommended, and how you can further support clients with these conditions. So first up is diabetes. So diabetes is a condition that occurs when the body is not able to regulate its blood sugar levels. So if it's left unmanaged, diabetes can lead to a wide range of side effects or different health complications. So things such as blindness, kidney failure, stroke, and amputation. So nutrition actually plays a key role in helping to treat and prevent diabetes. Most individuals that are receiving most individuals will be receiving support from a dietitian or other healthcare professional on how to manage their diet to help regulate their blood sugar levels. However, the following foods are commonly recommended to individuals with a diabetic diet. So, looking at things like whole grains, fruits and vegetables with no added salt or sugar, low fat dairy products, and lean proteins. So, things like chicken, tuna, beans, lentils, and legumes. So a couple of resources that would be useful for clients. The first one is the Diabetes Canada website. So they have a ton of resources for individuals with diabetes. So things such as meal ideas or even meal plans, handouts, and videos. And the second one is Waterloo Wellington Diabetes website. So they're a really great resource for individuals with diabetes that are looking for support from a healthcare provider. So there's actually a self-referral program that participants can join and attend many different programs and workshops. And they're all spread throughout KW and then some in Wellington as well. And a lot of these programs are actually free, so it's a really great thing to take advantage of. So the next condition is a heart-healthy diet. So a heart-healthy diet is an eating pattern that's generally recommended to individuals with heart disease. So, heart disease is a range of conditions, including hardening of the arteries, irregular heartbeat, heart defects or abnormalities, and heart failure. So, like diabetes, foods like fruits and vegetables, whole grains, high fiber foods, low fat, and low sodium options are typically recommended to individuals with heart disease. So, a great resource for clients to check out is the Heart and Stroke Foundation website. And they have a ton of information. So, everything from healthy eating, tips for physical activity, reducing stress, and just information on heart disease in general. And so, the final condition is celiac disease. So, celiac disease is an autoimmune disease that occurs when our immune system reacts to gluten and actually attacks the body's own tissues. So, when gluten is consumed, it damages the lining of our small intestines, which prevents our body from being able to properly absorb nutrients. So, celiac disease is not a food allergy, but it does require a lifelong commitment to a gluten free diet to prevent health consequences. So, actually, the only treatment currently for celiac disease is following a gluten free diet. So, gluten is found in any food that contains rye, wheat, and barley. And some products are a lot more easy to spot. So, things like bread, pasta, cookies, and cake. But gluten can also be hidden in a lot of other products. So, things like sauces, dips, and soups. So, we really want to try to be looking for the gluten free logo on products to make sure that we're getting a true gluten free product. So, a really great resource is the Canadian Celiac Association website. So, they have a ton of fantastic resources on their website, including recipes, information for individuals that are newly diagnosed with celiac disease. They also have an option to call in and speak with a registered dietitian. So, if you have a more specific question or looking for some advice, you can just call in and speak to them for free. They also have a gluten-free product finder. So if you're searching for a gluten-free cereal that might be suitable for you, you can just look in that product finder and find some options that you can look into. And they also have a ton of other resources, so they're definitely worth checking out. So, some other resources in general that you might find useful or your clients might enjoy. The first one is actually our website. So, the foodbank.ca/blog. So, on our blog, we have a ton of different resources. So, we have blog posts, recipes, and videos, and a lot of them are written by myself. So, they just cover a lot of different nutrition topics. And the recipes, we really try to tailor around what would be found in a hamper. They will be really applicable to clients if they're wanting to try something new. The next resource is Health Connect Ontario. So this is a really great resource. So you can actually dial 811 and get connected to Health Connect Ontario, and you can actually speak to a registered dietitian for free. So typically they work between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. But if you would like a different time, you can just request a call back at a different time, and they're just able to give you some general support that's a little bit more tailored to you. Next up is the directory of nutrition services in Waterloo region. So this highlights kind of all the nutrition programs and services that are available in Waterloo region by a dietitian. So they kind of filter by all the different conditions someone may be experiencing. And just important to note that some do require a doctor referral. So it's just worth checking on the chart. And lastly is Canada's Food Guide, which we did talk about already. But they're a really great resource. And on their website, there's actually a lot more information than what we covered today. And they even have recipes to go along with Canada's Food Guide. They also have printable versions of Canada's Food Guide, and it's available in a ton of different languages, so you can find ones that may be applicable to your clients. And so now we'll open it up to questions if anyone has any.
Generally speaking, Chelsea, just for an average individual, how much salt or sodium should somebody consume?
That's a really great question. I think it's around, ooh, I want to say 1,500 to 2,000. I'd have to double check that though, but it really does depend. Yeah, if you're someone that's high risk for heart disease, your doctor may recommend something a little bit lower, but I believe it's in that range.
Thank you. If we leave the workshop today and have additional questions or have an interaction with a client who maybe has some complex dietary needs and I'm just not quite sure how to handle them, um, are you available as a resource for us to reach out in the future?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm always available as a resource. So maybe if you'd like to be connected to some different resources that you can provide your client or just some advice in general, you can reach out. So you can just contact agency at thefoodbank.ca and they'll get that message over to me. If you need something a little bit more immediate, you could have them reach out to that Health Connect Ontario, so that 811 number, and they'll be connected to a dietitian. So they'll be able to get advice probably a little bit more quicker if it's something more urgent.
Super, thank you. Sorry, another question. In terms of plant-based proteins compared to animal-based proteins, do you have a recommendation around which would be healthier or make us feel fuller?
Yeah, so they're both really great sources of protein. Canada's Food Guide actually does recommend a little to try to consume a little bit more plant-based sources of protein, but you're going to find the same satiety kind of with either. Plant-based sources of protein actually are quite high in fiber, so fiber can really help contribute to fullness and make that meal really satisfying.
Really helpful, thank you. I think that's all the questions I have. Does anybody else in the group have any other questions? Not seeing anybody raising any questions. So thank you so much, Chelsea, for your time today, this afternoon. All the information you presented was very helpful. And I think we're well aware if we have any questions in the future, we'll contact agency at thefoodbank.ca to reach out if there's any future resources needed. So thanks again. We really do appreciate your time.
Perfect. Thanks, Julie.
Bye, everyone.